All right, coming back at you with a new assignment. This time we're doing trigonometry, identify opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, okay? So, this one's, we need to go over three terms. One is hypotenuse, is the longest side, and it's not touching the right angle. So if this were my right angle, these two sides are touching it. Right here and right here. They're both touching that green, right? But the third side is not touching it, right? This is also your longest side. And it's across from it. Okay? So the two letters are L and X that make up this green part. So our answer is LX, okay? Or XL. So you can see it one more time. Let's submit it. Okay, let's continue. So this is where the other terms come in, okay? First is opposite. It says opposite to Z, so let's start with Z. And here it says opposite is the one that's not touching this angle, okay? So here's Z. This side is not touching the angle, so it is your opposite side. Also draw an angle across. Your hypotenuse is still the long side. So this is your hypotenuse. Let me color code them for this one. Actually, let me use different colors for this. Make this purple. Make this one blue. And finally, let's make the adjacent pink, okay? Adjacent is between the right angle and your angle, okay? That's adjacent. This time we're looking for opposite to Z, so it would be PH. Okay, let's do a few. Here's C, opposite is ER. Opposite of Y is CU. Hypotenuse is the long side, it's this one, it's not touching the right angle. And I'm waiting to find one with ask for adjacent, okay? Here we go. So let's color it in again. Here is your angle, H. Here's a right angle. So connecting them is your adjacent side. Meanwhile, the long side is your hypotenuse. It's not touching the right angle. And your opposite side is your here. It's not touching H, okay? So adjacent is H to G, or GH, okay? All right. This sets us up for the next assignment, which we need to use them, okay? So you're going to encounter three new things. It will be sine, sin, or the full parenthesis sine. It will be opposite over hypotenuse, okay? Cosine, or cos, is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then tangent, tan, or tangent is opposite over adjacent, okay? So let's see how we use this, okay? So first we look at its tangent. and it's B. So we start at B, and we find the opposite, which is the side that's not touching B. Next we find the adjacent, which is the side that's between the right angle and B. So it's 27 over 36. This is why it's important to know how to recognize opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, okay? So next one. We start with angle A, and sine here is opposite, which is this side. It's not touching A, and the hypotenuse, which will be here, the long side, okay? In this one, this side will always be hypotenuse, so it'll be 68 over 85. Once again, opposite of B, because its tangent, is 20 over 15. Same thing, 54 over 72. 12 over 5. But now it's tangent of A, right? So we go the other way. We go 40 over 30. Finally, we got a cosine. Cosine is adjacent and hypotenuse, so here's A. Adjacent to A is here, because it's between the right angle and the angle. And finally, hypotenuse is here. So it'd be 35 over 37. Okay? So that's an application of opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse using these three things. Finally, the last one is very similar too. Sine of u, so we find u first. Sine is opposite. It's opposite. Let's mark it in blue because it's not touching it. And then hypotenuse is a long side, okay? And let me write out opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse again. And then hypotenuse is all right. So these are what you're working with, okay? So for this one, it'll be 12 over 13, and this is fraction, so I'd write just a fraction. Okay. Once again, it wants a fraction, so let me do this one as a fraction. This is tangent of G, so here's G. Opposite is this one because it's not touching, and adjacent is the one that's so tangent is opposite, adjacent will be in between the right angle and your angle. So it's 14 over 25. Hold on, it's glitching. All right, new problem. So we encounter two things new. First is round it to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to show you at the end, you don't leave it as a fraction, okay? Second is if I'm trying to find cosine, I'm going to need both the adjacent, which here's V, here's the adjacent, it's between that. But we need the hypotenuse, which we don't have here, right? Okay, so how do we find, we have two sides though. How do we find the third side? If we remember, we have to use the Pythagorean theorem. So here's the equation again, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're looking for a c, so we plug in for a and b. If you don't know how to do this yet, you have to go back and review or complete the Pythagorean theorem in order to know how to do it, okay? So this is 9 plus 16 equals c squared. C squared is equal to 25. C is square root of 25, which gives us 5, okay? So that is not our answer though. All we did was we found this side, and we still have to find the cosine, right? So it's 3 over 5. And since it's rounded to the nearest hundredth, we have to put it in our calculator. And put in the decimal, okay? That's our final answer. Okay. Let me find another problem where we have to round to the... Okay. Let's look for some more problems. Not this one. All right. Let's try this one. So once again, we have to round. We don't need Pythagorean theorem because we have all three sides. So we start with W. Tangent is the opposite over the adjacent, okay? So it would be 32 over 24. We get 1.33, 3 repeating. So the hundredth, we need 2 decimal places, okay? This is tenths, this is hundredths, this is thousandths, okay? So we look at this one, it's less than 5, right? So we keep this, okay? So we just write 1.33. I wanted to add something at the end, but these are the steps you would take to do. So first, you need to ask yourself what sides you need. For example, this is cosine. So cosine, as I see here, I need the adjacent to O, which is this side, and the hypotenuse. So I'm missing this side, so I have to use Pythagorean theorem to solve for it, okay? A squared plus b squared is c squared. I solve for this a. Finally, I find this side, whatever that side is, I plug it in for, it's gonna be 20, I think. So let's say solve for it, I get 20. Fraction will be 20 over 25. It says simplest terms, right? So 4 is make sure you are doing this simplest form fraction or rounding to the hundredth place, depending on the question, okay? So for this one, it is fraction in simplest terms, so 20 over 25 will simplify it into 4 over 5, okay? These are the steps you take to solve it, okay? And then once again, like and subscribe. Have a good night. Bye.